Karen. Doing great. Nice to see you.
Great to see you too. I was going to start with an intro of what your job is, but I think we've already had that portion of it. But you recently joined Kellogg's. Actually, you joined during the pandemic, which is quite something. So how has that been after spending most of your career? You're in the beauty industry for most of your career. So can you give us some insight as to what your job has been like walking into a virtual world and your role at Kellogg's, and just what decisions came to make that change?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that. And I am thrilled to be with you all today virtually. And it seems that that's become all of our lives. There's certainly not easy starting at a new company, especially one that is has such a deep history and long tenured employees as Kellogg. So it's been a journey to, try and connect and get to know people. You have to be creative, as we've all been over the last year and a half. My role at Kellogg is I lead global marketing for the global growth team. And what I do is I partner with the 4 regions. I'm responsible for upskilling our marketing talent through capability building. I'm also responsible for insights and analytics, as well as global categories and brands. And so brands like Special K and Pringles and our master brand. And so you asked how I landed here. Well, fundamentally, with a mom who's an educator, a core value of mine is lifelong learning. And so after having many years in cosmetics and jewelry at Estee Lauder and Pandora, as you heard David talk about, I took the opportunity to explore something completely new and different. Where it led me was to Kellogg's, because Kellogg's has a commitment to purpose, and it resonates with me. I think you all know, and we all know, have felt the seismic impact of the pandemic. And if we add to that the racial reckoning that's happening in our country, there is no doubt that we've all been tested. And we've been tested in terms of our resilience, our empathy, and our adaptability. But what it meant for me personally was that it made me consider how I'm making a difference. And Kellogg is a company that has values that are aligned with mine. It's inclusive, and it's working to solve one of the world's most important issues, which is around food insecurity. And this issue is one that particularly affects underrepresented groups, which makes it deeply relevant and personal to me. And so that is how I got here.
So I think it's very important, and food insecurity is something that Discovery has worked to fight as well. And in fact, we've had a nice partnership with No Kid Hungry together. And Kellogg has done wonderful work with bringing breakfast into the schools, right?
That's right.
Over almost 10 years with No Kid Hungry. So really admire that you're doing that. Let's talk about the brands, because consumer expectations right now are for brands to stand for something, and it's never been stronger. And to your point and the purpose of Kellogg, how are you addressing just the purposeful nature of the brand and what consumers are expecting from you at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Kellogg has always been a purpose-driven organization, and we're actually celebrating our 115th anniversary this year. And if you know anything about our history, you know that we are the original plant-based company. But one of the things that we wanted to do in the last year is to evolve our vision and purpose to reinforce our key values. So our vision is all about, a good and just world where people are not just fed, but fulfilled. And our purpose, which really speaks to my heart, is around creating better days and a value and a place at the table for everyone through our trusted food brands. Our new vision and purpose really aligns with our existing Better Days global purpose platform, what you talked about and how we partnered with Discovery. And with our Better Days platform, we're addressing these kind of interconnected issues of health, hunger relief, and climate. And the objective is to create better days for 3 billion people as well as the planet by the end of 2030.
Wow.
So if I take a moment though, just to talk a little bit more about what it means to have a place at the table for everyone, we're really amplifying our focus on inclusion and promoting an environment where we can create accessible and affordable foods that help fuel the best in everyone, everywhere. So that's our commitment, and that is what we're living by every day.
Really impressive and important in the time that we're in. So thank you for that. You've commented about how we can't think about marketing in a silo, and we're among marketers today. But tell us how you think about this and what your rationale is for thinking about breaking down those silos.
Yeah, it's so important that this not just be one functional area's priority, and it be something that the entire organization is leaning into. So when I think about creating a seat at the table for everyone, it's not just about how we market our foods, but also ensuring that we have accessible foods and also that they're the right foods within our portfolio. And then if you marry that with creating, the right go-to-market strategy to get those products and those foods in the hands of those who not only want them, but potentially need them. So that's how we're breaking down barriers and maximizing that business opportunity. And just a bit further to that point, we're taking it a step further by combining insights and analytics with innovation, with e-commerce, to make sure that we're creating like a rich omni-channel experience. And so right foods with the right pricing, tailoring the right message, and that could be a message that's on our digital shelf or our physical shelf, to make sure that we're connecting with those diverse consumer cohorts.
Right, very parallel to what's going on in the media world as well, which is to connect to consumers however they want to see our content. So I really appreciate that. So let's zero in on the marketing piece of the equation. How are you incorporating these ideals you've spoken of within your global marketing strategies?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I mean, we are marketers and this space is evolving, but I fundamentally believe that the fundamentals or the core of what marketing hasn't changed, but the mechanics have changed. So it's still about putting the consumer at the heart and at the center of everything we do, and then using that blend of art and science or creativity and data, however you want to frame it, to connect. And to drive that desire to recruit, reclaim, and retain consumers. So with that, however, what has happened is that the landscape in terms of consumer preference and expectations has evolved and proliferated, and in some cases fragmented even. And so what I can tell you is just a few stats and things that we're looking at in terms of consumer behavior and preferences. We know that 70% of consumers are claim that trusting a brand is more important than ever. We also know that trust is even more important for that Gen Z audience. Women are controlling or the daily shopping environment and the shopping for the household. In addition to that, our aging population is growing very rapidly. And then, of course, we've talked so much about what's happening with diverse consumers from the standpoint of ethnicity. There's a majority minority population, with 40% of the US being Black, Indigenous people of color. And in 8 of the top 10 cities, this is already the case. So this is quite the landscape when you think about trying to, gain an understanding to these different consumer groups and making sure that you're able to market to them successfully. One of the things that we're doing at Kellogg is we recently rolled out our K way of inclusive marketing. And the reason we did that is because that landscape and that consumer cohort is proliferating. And what we want to do is equip our brand and marketing leaders to create, experience plans and brand strategies that resonate, but also really drive those business outcomes that are so important for us to be around for the next 115 years.
Absolutely. Well, I would love to hear more about how your brand is connecting with diverse audiences today.
Absolutely. We're connecting in many different ways, but at the core of it is understanding consumer behavior. For sure, cultural dynamics are kind of the wild card, and how you appeal and understand culture such that you can react and communicate in a way that's resonant. And then lastly, how we can be relevant. So just to give you a few examples, one of the things that we're doing that's been a lot of fun is reaching Gen Zers through our gaming. Our Pringles brand is on fire. It's doing exceptionally well. And one of the things that we did was we did a video game zombie. We brought a video game zombie to life in Twitch. And the live stream actually featured Frank the Zombie. That's a character in the West of Dead video game, if you're not familiar.
Not my demo.
Not your demo. Mine either, but I enjoyed it, and my son was super excited about it. We introduced a series of video spots showing Frank learning how to be more social. He actually took over some Twitter accounts, and we have seen some fantastic results from that. It's actually one of the most talked about campaigns, with about 640,000 impressions and some really strong business results, increasing our Pringles business by 25%. And add to that, we've already won some really fantastic awards, and we're actually up for an award here at Cannes as well. So looking forward to celebrating, hopefully sometime later this week.
Oh, that's exciting. So did you have a sizzle?
I would love to show you the video. I may be technically challenged, which I don't want to. Let's take an attempt.
Okay.
I'm going to take over the screen.
This is the challenge of live, right?
Because I don't even see it here.
You don't see share on the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see it, so I'm going to not share it.
Okay.
So just to prevent us from.
All right. Well, maybe if you find it
distance.
during this, we can look at it toward the end.
For sure.
But
yeah, so Pringles has been, performing really well for us. One of the other things that was an evolving theme and that we experienced during COVID is that many African Americans shifted their eating behaviors and habits to more functional foods. We already knew that this population over-indexed on being non-meat eaters. And our meat alternative line, Incognito, actually launched their newest innovation in chicken, which is the fastest growing meatless segment. This product, if you haven't tried it, it's in a freezer case near you. You have to, because it's a plant-based disruptor. But what we wanted to do was connect to this cohort for the launch of our chicken tenders. So our US team rolled out a really awesome pop-up food truck in collaboration with the owner of the Slutty Vegan restaurant in Atlanta. She is also a major influencer. Her name is Pinky Cole. And we made this all about the food and how to prepare it in ways that are culturally relevant to drive that trial with this consumer cohort. So really important, but it's both insight driven and leveraging culture uniquely to appeal to that audience. As marketers, we're also solving problems. The visually impaired have continued to say that food and packaging labels can be difficult to read because of the small print. So we actually did a test run of Braille packaging using Navalens technology, and we used it on our Cocoa Puffs packaging in the UK. And what we did was we had these smart codes that are readable at up to 12 times the distance of a traditional QR code. And that allowed us to deliver accessible information to the right user. And we also won an award for that in Europe with the PAC Global Leadership team there. And then lastly, sorry.
No, I just said it's so innovative.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think lastly, I'll just mention that we're reaching consumers, where they are, addressing needs that they have based upon the market, and brands that are relevant. One of the things that we're doing in Africa, we launched the Kellogg's instant noodles in South Africa and Egypt. It's definitely not a product you would expect to find from us, but the eating habits are very different in terms of the types of food that they eat for breakfast. So we chose to brand this product under our master brand, which immediately established trust in our foods and reinforces the quality in a part of the world where we have tremendous growth opportunities. So with this brand, we've already seen amazing category growth that's double digit in both South Africa and Egypt. So the key theme here is, diversity is not just about, or, being inclusive is not just about ethnicity. It's about age. It's about different consumer cohorts, and speaking to them in a way that's culturally relevant to connect with your brands and your foods or products.
Well, it's fascinating as a global brand to think about how many different iterations you could have, but using the master brand just gives you such a leg up because you're such a great legacy brand.
Absolutely.
Really wonderful. Let's talk a little bit about insights and analytics, and talk about how data has helped to inform some of the decisions you've made and some of these innovative new ideas.
Sure. I have to say that, as a marketer for almost 20 plus years, I've always loved the art and science of marketing. Like I'm a analytical person by nature. So having both sides is always been something that was a part of me as a marketer and a part of my marketing brand. So, enter the advent of full funnel marketing and being able to tie, more clearly and quantitatively tie, business results and outcomes has been like just a moment of jubilation for me as a marketer. So this is a key value and so important for us as we continue to engage our consumers. And for us, data is used end to end. We're leveraging AI and machine learning because it's all about getting that consumer targeting, personalization, but also performance and being able to attribute that performance. So we're testing, we're learning rapidly, and we're working with a host of partners to help us evolve those capabilities. We're using it in a few different ways. We're sizing opportunities, and it's helping us in our innovation. So, for instance, we recently partnered with a company that's able to kind of scrape the web from an ethnographic standpoint. They are mining social conversations and helping us to understand the maturity of key topics and phrases. So, some are nascent, burgeoning versus, some that are really fully developed. So you get the full spectrum of that maturity curve. And what it allows us to do is really dimensionalize. So we may be able to deploy, commercial claims messaging today because we really want to tap into the immediacy of that message and the relevance of it today. All the way through to, building breakthroughs for the future so that we can, capitalize on future themes and ideas that are resonating with consumer, but are in the very, very early stages of doing so.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we're also, we have a host of brands that are leveraging unique content. And we're doing that in the US. We're informing content. So, what are the content that works on a specific channel and for which specific brands? So creating that content learning, optimizing that effectiveness in real time. We did a couple of pilots with our Nutri-Grain brand in Australia. And so we've been leveraging, content and optimizing our content for effectiveness. And then, even taking it to the route to market and to the store level in Mexico, where using segmentation, identifying our customer clusters at the neighborhood level, and then being able to match that to the relevant occasions, whether it be, a breakfast occasion or, a lunch occasion or a snacking occasion, and tapping into that across that portfolio of brands and products. And we were able to, by leveraging this technology and this partner, we were able to drive an 8% improvement in our net sales. So data is at the heart of everything we do. As I mentioned, we are partnering with a host of different providers in that space. And some of it is around innovation, some of it is around media and media effectiveness, some of it is around content, but really trying to maximize how we drive both efficiency and effectiveness, but also nail the message, which is so key.
Right. I think it's so important, the confluence of data, but never letting go of the fact that brands still rule, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Brand is everything.
So tell us what advice you'd give to everyone who's watching today on how to best incorporate inclusive marketing within their organizations. Obviously, this is something that you've worked deeply with, and it's so important right now. So how can you help your fellow marketers here today?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first and foremost, our job as marketers is to build demand. It's also to build desire, and to grow our brands. Brands are all about belonging. They're about connection and inspiration. And inclusive marketing sits at the heart of that. It ensures that we are delighting our consumers and welcoming them to our table. At Kellogg, we're actually rallying around 4 key strategies to drive that acceleration. So one is about leaning into authenticity and personalization. I spoke about that majority-minority group and that growth that's translating into significant purchasing power. That segment of Blacks, Asians, and Hispanics has a combined purchasing power of $4 trillion. So if brands aren't focusing here, they're overlooking some significant potential consumers. So we have to ask ourselves, who is our consumer? What motivates them? Where do they shop? Are they shopping online or offline? What media are they consuming? Are they into gaming? Are they, are they into other social media channels, or, are they more traditional? And for us, as a mass brand that is in, thousands of grocery stores and high frequency stores all over the globe, that's really key. But having representation of diverse groups in the room when working through these opportunities and strategies is what is going to ultimately bring that diversity of thought. It's also really important to partner with organizations that understand and can reach those diverse cohorts. So we actually recently worked with Black Girls Run in partnership with our Special K brand. And we were able to be a part of their training program along with Lala Anthony, and provide nutritional content and as well as reinforce the deliciousness and the healthiness of our Special K products. So aligning with those key partners is key. As I said, leveraging data and analytics. So getting personal means looking at audience cohorts at a granular level, because we need to understand their needs. Data and analytics allow for greater personalization without a doubt. When we understand the consumer's motivation and their buying behavior, we can vary our message by audience, but it doesn't mean that we always have to. As a matter of fact, being inclusive means that you broaden the purview versus narrow it. So it's a little bit of both, and you have to consider which one is most relevant for your product or your challenge. I think it's important to be accountable. We have set definitions and established principles to qualify our media investments. We're ensuring our investments align with our values and our brand safety guardrails. We're trying to create holistic, inclusive strategies to build the business and to execute against our commitments to advance equity. And we're also moving our supplier diversity goals forward to ensure our agency partners align with our values. I think the 4th point that I'll make is that it's about adopting culture as a strategy. And we talked up front about inclusive marketing at Kellogg is bigger than a single function, and it's bigger than our agencies. It requires teams across the business to think beyond silos and work as one. And it all starts with a company's culture, advocating and understanding diverse groups of people. At Kellogg, we actually just recently launched a Chef in Resident Fellowship, which is really cool. And we hired the first of 2 Black chefs who are working alongside our global R&D team to explore the foods of Black cultures globally. This will be an opportunity for us to introduce a whole new world of food that Kellogg hasn't explored before. And actually, it's really even more personal for me because the first chef in resident is actually from my neighborhood in Chicago, in Bronzeville. So I'm super excited to welcome him to the team. I think what was also really, really meaningful for me with this initiative is that not only does it create, future opportunities for, a qualified chef in R&D, but it also extends a legacy of inclusiveness at the company and ultimately creates a competitive advantage for our food. So understanding culture and leveraging culture as a strategy is so key to that.
Do you see that as bringing in full new foods or just affecting flavor for existing foods? Is that, or is it open to interpretation at this point?
I think it's a great point. We actually just had an amazing presentation that was mined from all over the globe with the top 10 trends in food, and it's called The Future of Food. So it's a matter of, identifying the flavors that are resonant in certain cultures and mining those and seeing if they have applicability in our current portfolio. So it could be flavors, it also could be food forms. It's appealing to consumers in different occasions. So I think it runs the gambit in terms of how we could actually leverage it for the future.
Well, it's interesting because I guess there are trends and then there are also just base flavors that might be discoverable that you wouldn't have known before. So that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So I guess the final question I'll ask is, what challenges is Kellogg encountering when you're working to connect with these diverse audiences, and what's working well right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges, I think in general, because of how some of this consideration around diversity has come to the forefront, is the discomfort that everyone feels with the subject matter, frankly. But if we think of ourselves as being empathetic human beings, and we decide that we must connect with these diverse audiences and approach it as, how do I understand and how do I garner that deep understanding? It will help us to connect more intimately. It's exhausting work for sure, but it's deeply personal as well. And we know that part of communicating more effectively with the diverse cohorts is beginning to understand where they are, and also where there are biases. I mentioned earlier that we do a robust inclusive marketing training. And now we're moving to embedding those behaviors into our experience plans, into our ways of working, and into our culture. But to do that, we also must hold ourselves accountable and hold our teams accountable for continuous learning and evolution. So I think the fundamental is that it's an ongoing conversation. There is no kind of one and done, but representation is a pathway to help and making sure that you are considering those diverse groups and those diverse cohorts. I think that's the first step to the unlock. And that's how you build a business that, if you're McKinsey or other consulting firms, that's how you build a business that's going to have higher likelihood of outperformance versus your competition.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sorry, just to say, at Discovery, we have a Mosaic initiative, and it's all about diverse audiences and also about getting behind and in front of the camera with audiences that look much more like the consumers across the country. So totally relate to the fact that this is a project that doesn't happen as a one and done. It is a long-term conscious building that you have to do across an entire portfolio. So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
it's absolutely. It's all about intent and intention and commitment.
Right.
Yeah. So great. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to say in that, or we can take some questions?
Yeah, I'm happy to take some questions. I think the only thing I might close with is, we are a plant-based company, and we're marketing in about 180 countries around the globe. We have 31,000 employees, and so size is fantastic and great, but it's also can be a barrier and it can be tough. So one of the things that is great about this integration with data is the personalization aspect, and being able to have personalization and have it play such a pivotal role in the future of our food. And that is what's going to allow us to accomplish and to drive that scale, but drive it in a way that connects directly with people and reinforces the personalization and the message that people are craving.
So we have a couple of questions. One question is, what's top of mind for you as a marketer as the country starts to reopen?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's top of mind for me is is making sure that we're able to continue to engage those consumer cohorts that rediscovered us during the pandemic. So you've probably read that consumers went back to cereal. They went back during the pandemic because it was safe, it was nostalgic. Parents shared it with their children as a way to community, but also because we were all sitting around the kitchen table once again together. And so we are leveraging data analytics, messaging to make sure that we continue to engage those households, but certainly that is top of mind.
So here's another question. With the way marketing and digital media evolve so rapidly, how do you hire and what do you look for as you build out your team?
Oh,
sounds like somebody wants to work at Kellogg. So
that's a great question. So I'm looking for marketers who are passionate, who are curious. And I at the end of the day, it comes down to being an advocate, an ambassador on behalf of our company and our brand. I think, you can't come out of this pandemic and not care about your value set. So finding an organization and, a brand or products that connect with you personally, I think is key. So yeah, I mean, we definitely have some openings. So
that's great. Another question, how is Kellogg identifying trends and creating new relevant foods to fit today's consumers?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that we are working with our R&D teams on innovation. And so we are discovering food trends based upon the landscape. We are mining, and scanning that social space, as I mentioned, with that ethnographic work. We're tapping into all of our R&D leads. We're also leveraging suppliers. That is a great way to be at the forefront of what's happening in food and food and flavors and culture. So I would say there's no one place that great ideas come from. So we are tapping into data. We're tapping into what we've seen work really well in our business in the past, as well as mining those professional networks and experts that can help us build that future of food.
So tapping into data, we have a question, which is, how does Kellogg collect data and what consumer insights have you seen in the past year? I know you've just mentioned one, which was everybody's around the table and the cereal business went wild. Can you comment on this question?
Yeah, so we collect data. So we have a first party data through our Kellogg Family Rewards program, and that's in the US. where we have 33 million records of individuals and households. And that is, obviously first party proprietary data that we leverage in our marketing communication. So that's one pathway. Of course, we are also leveraging second and third party data as well. As consistently as we possibly can, we're focused on learning and understanding, what our consumers are buying, how they're shopping, looking at the competitive landscape, to garner insights. And then, of course, as I mentioned, throughout this session, we are leveraging AI and machine learning and training our data to help us be more predictive, in terms of messaging and marketing and effectiveness.
Okay, here's somebody who's asking a question based, I'm sure, upon their own behavior during COVID, which is, have you considered marketing cereal as a late night snack instead of as a breakfast food?
Excellent question. And yes, we have an innovation already out there. It's called Jumbo Snacks. And you can find it in the snack aisle. So I highly recommend it. If you love Frosted Flakes or you love Fruit Loops, you should go for it.
Okay. Another interesting question. Are there any non-competitive brands that you look at for inspiration or as an example to emulate?
I mean, I think, branding is such an art that as a marketer that comes from both jewelry and cosmetics, there's no doubt that I'm thinking laterally and thinking about what learnings and insights I can apply from, everything from how I think about, the role of the brand within the consumer's life. Like, how do I build iconic brands? How do I build a portfolio of brands that are differentiated? How do I use memory structures to make sure that I am, top of mind and distinctive in a consumer's mind? So there are those kind of fundamentals of branding and brand building that I think, apply across. So because I was trained in cosmetics, I'm always looking at what's happening in beauty. I'm always looking at what's happening in jewelry. I won't ever stop because those are segments of and verticals that resonated really deeply with me and that I worked in. So
and also that connect to trends as well, right?
Absolutely, 1000%.
Well, thank you so much, Charisse. I think we're out of time, but this was a pleasure. So enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Yeah, this was wonderful. So thank you both. Charisse, I wanted to say, earlier you mentioned what Pringles was doing on the gaming side. I mean, we just had one of our, every few months we do one on esports and gaming, and it is one of the hottest categories out there. So in demand from our community, because you have to a certain extent, a handful of brands that have dipped their toes in those waters and began experimenting early with those audiences and with that world, and everybody else kind of wants to jump into that now. So, kudos to being early in that world. And again, thank you so much for sharing with us. I loved hearing about, the personalization, because we hear about personalization marketing. We don't always hear about it on the product development side of things. So the way that you're kind of leveraging those insights to think about, what you're creating there. I mean, the chefs program and what you're doing internationally, just super inspiring. And we love hearing from you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, David, for having me.
Of course. And Karen, amazing job leading this discussion. So thank you both. And we hope to have you back again soon.
All right. Thanks, David. Thanks, Charisse.
All right. Bye. We're going to keep the show rolling. We have another group of amazing speakers this morning. Well, the whole day is really, phenomenal, but we're thrilled to bring on our next group. We have Jason Mulderig, the Senior Vice President of Brand Marketing at HBO Max over at Warner Media.